Good afternoon, and welcome to the Greater Illinois Chapter of HIMSS virtual event called Agile Leadership Empowerment for Career Success. My name is Laquita Jung, and I am a member of the Educational Programs Committee at GIC HIMSS. I just wanted to alert you of a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. If at any time you have a question, please type it in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we will answer as many questions as we can at the end of the program. If we do not get to your question in the time allotted, your question will be answered by email. After the webinar ends, our evaluation survey will be presented. Certainly, we appreciate any feedback you may have, but if you are requesting continuing education credit, you are required to complete the evaluation. After completing the survey, a certificate will be emailed to you by the end of the week. Again, I welcome you to the GIC HIMSS virtual event, Agile Leadership Empowerment for Career Success. We thank you for taking time out of your busy day to participate in our educational event. We first, on behalf of GIC HIMSS, would like to thank all our sponsors for their support. Without them, these educational events would not be possible. We move over to our GIC HIMSS founder sponsors, Brother, Connection, Secure IT 360, Konica Minolta, Rubric, Alta. And then we move over to our elite sponsors, Zebra, Comcast Business. And we have our premier sponsor, Medigate. Now we move over to our upcoming events. We have our October 26th event, Women Navigating Careers in Health Tech, Stories from the Frontline. That location is in Intercontinental Chicago, Magnificent Mall. We also have our December 13th event called the Holiday Charity Event, and that location is at Table at Crate. As we start to post for registration details, you can find it on our website, link below. Now let's move over and follow us on social media. We have LinkedIn. You can search the GIC HIMSS bar for that. We also follow us on Twitter, and also we are on Facebook. So we would like for you to stay informed and join the conversation. Now, thank you again for joining today's program, Agile Leadership Empowerment for Career Success. This will be led by our moderator today, named Case Kostaki. She is a passionate Scrum Master and Agile coach with years of experience in healthcare, information services, and technology. Currently serving as a program manager for the Agile transformation team at Northwestern Medicine, she enables individuals and teams to be successful through continual learning and growth. In collaboration with her team members, she leads the Agile community, a practice for the purpose of exchanging knowledge, building skills, and improving Agile practices across the department and organization. Case holds an MBA in Healthcare Administration and is a certified Scrum Master. She is part of the Greater Illinois Chapter of HIMSS Board of Directors and serves as the president-elect. Her other interests include traveling, food lover, writing novels, and volunteering and binge watching TV shows. You can connect with Case on LinkedIn. I will now hand this over to Case to introduce the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Laquita. So if everybody else watches, binge watches TV shows, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm looking for a new TV show to start because I'm passionate about those, or any new food recipes that you've tried. So I want to welcome everybody to our webinar today. Thank you for taking time out of your lunch to join us. I will introduce our speakers in our panel for today, some amazing women here that have used Agile in their own career, not only in software development and products that we see all the time, but how have they used Agile in their own career success and career development. So I'll start off with Melissa. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Since we're talking about careers, I am Dr. Melissa Breath. I hold my doctorate in nursing practice, as well as focusing in informatics for over 20 years and nursing even longer. I am currently a measure developer. My title is Associate Project Director, Clinical Quality Informatics at the Joint Commission. And I have lead a career that has started at the bedside, taking care of patients, and worked through from the vendor perspective, from large organizations, healthcare organizations, consulting, prior to the regulatory side. But through all of these steps, progressively championing and improving care.
Very interesting story, right? You talked a little bit about that flexibility and continuous improving in your career, starting from the bedside to where you are today. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Amy, I think you have a little bit of a different background from Melissa. So why don't you introduce yourself to the webinar group?
Great. Hi, everybody. Amy Christenberry. I currently serve as a senior manager on our solution engineering team at Strata Decision Technology. So it's a healthcare finance tech company. And within our solution engineering company, I focus a lot on day-to-day operations and processes and a lot of process improvement from a responsibility perspective. So professionally, that's my focus. And personally, I'm really into self-improvement as well. I do have some similarities to Melissa. I actually started out clinically with a degree in sports medicine. After some influence from my uncle, who served as the CEO at Duke Hospitals, he encouraged me to pursue my master's in healthcare administration. So although I loved the clinical aspect, I felt that the administration side was a little bit more of a fit for me. I did stay close to the clinical side for many years, working at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago in their nursing and finance department, which really then piqued my interest to move to the vendor side of the world. I just thought the relationship we had with them was really cool and unique. So I went to a patient engagement company, ME Solutions, and did a bunch of different roles: implementation, project management, account management, and then ultimately landed at Strata. Through my time at Strata, I've also really found a love for non-client facing work, so more so building the relationships internally and doing a lot of focus on coaching from a people management and leadership perspective. I also love reality TV and dabble in more of the dramatic, Bachelor in Paradise. So anybody who watches that, I'm happy to talk about that too.
And Ashley, I mean, you're a director of corporate development and operations. Talk to us a little bit about what that is and how has your journey been to this current role right now?
Yeah, so I actually just started a new role a couple of months ago. So my new title is the Director of Development and Operations. I work at the same company that Amy does. I'm really excited because it's actually a net new role for our company. One of the biggest things that I'm going to be doing in this role is actually helping to build out an organizational-wide operating model for how we manage our strategic initiatives within the organization. And then once we've got that framework in place, I'll be helping to lean into a couple of those strategic initiatives and see them from ideation all the way through execution with our clients. It's really interesting. I have a very different background than the rest of the folks that you're going to hear from today. I actually graduated from Iowa State, and initially my focus was in marketing. I thought that I was going to go and work for an advertising company and do all these really cool campaigns, work on guerrilla marketing, and that was going to be my life. And I got into that space and realized that I was looking for something a little bit different for myself and for my career. And I actually stumbled on Strata Decision Technology. I had a good friend of mine who was working at the company, and she said, why don't you just come on over, see what you think? And, there's a lot of opportunity here. So moved to Strata, also moved to Chicago for that role as well. And I started as a project coordinator doing a lot of the administrative work with our CRM tool. Then I actually did a stint as a Scrum Master, which I'm hoping I'll get a chance to talk about a little bit later and being presented that opportunity. Then moved into client-facing project management, did that for about 2 years, and then spent the last 4 years working on our operations team, doing a lot of process improvement, a lot of program management, and I had a couple of different teams that I oversaw as well. So really happy to be here today, really happy to share my thoughts, but very different background, and I kind of stumbled into healthcare.
Well, that's very interesting. I mean, you all had, you have different stories on how you got into your current role. We talked about process improvement. We talked about some career change, starting from the clinical side or the bedside, now into more informatic roles or administration roles. I'm sure that you've met with a lot of groups, with a lot of people. You've had to collaborate with different types of cross-functional teams and folks. How has collaboration helped you with that? Or how have you used collaboration in your career to be where you are today? And here we have on the slide what collaboration means in Agile, just a little blurb on that. But I'll start with Amy. Can you elaborate on a specific example where your collaborative approach led to a successful outcome or maybe to a career advancement in your career growth?
Absolutely. So I really like to look at collaboration as going a little bit beyond networking. So whether that's within your organization or oftentimes we network, right? That is an ultimate goal of HIMSS as well. I think one way to elaborate on that further is to dig into some of the volunteering component. I know personally I've done a lot of volunteer events, which the goal was to network, but ultimately I learned a lot about different processes and workflows that I was then able to take back and bring into my day-to-day role. And then from a current day-to-day perspective, when it comes to collaboration, I had previously overseen our project management team and had to collaborate often with our HR department when we're reviewing candidates. And so we're having to collaborate and ultimately message what we're looking for in a candidate so that they're able to recruit and bring in the right team members. So there's a lot of detail that goes into that, of making sure that we're aligned on what the green flags are, what the red flags might be, and would set up stand-ups, which is, pulling from that Scrum Agile methodology, reprioritizing candidates, and just making sure, again, that we're communicating and have the same goal in mind.
That's very important, especially when you're hiring new talent or bringing those into a team. You want to make sure that those new individuals just fit with the current team that you have, or how will they collaborate with those existing roles. Yeah. So Melissa, how have you used collaboration in your own career?
Within my career, as far as the different roles, the true essence of an informaticist is actually a liaison. So oftentimes the translator of clinical concepts to the technical side to make things move forward and happen. So you need to bring in all the different business stakeholders so that you can collaborate on what it is your end product is going to be. But from a broader scale on my career, I think the collaborators, I always think to myself, you know your resources and use them well. And that relates to not just things, but for people, see the people for their strengths, identify how they would be beneficial for different situations, as well as the networking piece to it. Even Ashley, you mentioned how somebody told you about Strata and brought you in. Somebody said to me, hey, I think this position would be great. Maybe you want to, apply for it. And that was at Zincs Health. And so those opened up doors, and it's all because of that collaboration, because you can see in other people where their strengths are and how to either help them be better and open those doors for themselves, or even for the problems and the things that you do to help enrich how you're going to improve what you're doing. So for this discussion, I tapped on my friend Tammy, her shoulder, who is a nurse in Tennessee that works with Agile very often in application development, and treasure her input to help me prepare, as well as give advice about the directions and the way that things can impact my career paths or the things that my interests.
And using that social capital, right? How do you use that social capital to find your new position, or to move forward with within your own organization at the moment into a new position? Like I think Ashley, you mentioned now you have this new role. So we talked about networking a little bit. We gave a different spin to this. We also talked about collaborating with different teams like HR that Amy mentioned about finding that perfect candidate for a role. So Ashley, how have you used your primary connections or primary resources, but also thinking about developing those new connections outside of your immediate area to enhance your career? How difficult has that been? What are some of those challenges?
So building relationships, and real and organic relationships, I feel like is actually a really big skill set of mine. I'm only as effective as the relationships that I have and the trust that I build with the people that I work with. So that's a very important thing for me. Something, no matter what role I've been in, I always take a look around and assess who are the people that are my primary stakeholders, who are the people that are my secondary stakeholders, and who are people that it's just good for me to know and understand a little bit more about their background. So anytime I go into a new role or a new space, that's always something that I'm thinking about. And my focus is building those relationships with people so we can get to that place where we have trust and we can have open communication and we can move forward from there. I think that has also been really beneficial for myself as I've continued to move into different roles and do new things, because I have developed that trust with people. I can be open and honest. If I'm feeling like I need a new challenge, if I feel like I'm looking for something a little bit different, but I'm not necessarily sure what it is, I have a lot of different people that I can turn to and share my thoughts and opinions, and they can give me their perspective on it and help guide me through that process. So I would definitely encourage you in any role that you're in, you're only as strong as the team that you're working with. So take a look around, assess who are the people that you have real organic relationships with, who are the people that you need to build those relationships with. And that is beneficial, one, for the short term and the projects that you're working on, but it's also going to be beneficial for you in the long run if you ever need something from them down the line.
And that is very important. I was at a conference recently in Florida, and one thing that came up about collaboration, and we talk about creating networking and relationships with people that are very similar to us, have similar personalities. So that's organic. That's easy. We can go talk to them and create that relationship. It's really hard though to collaborate with somebody that you're completely different from. So bridging that gap, and how do we come together to collaborate better, to drive better results and outcomes, that's important too. So in one of those sessions, and I think that was really useful, I'll use it moving forward in my career, they talked about creating a power map. So create a power map of the person that, for example, is going to approve your project, or you're trying to get a promotion and this individual is going to approve that promotion or is going to refer you for a promotion. If you don't have a direct link to them, see who can introduce you to them, see who can speak for you, be a sponsor for you. And Amy, Ashley, Melissa, you all talked a little bit about that. Use your resources and use the people that to take that next step. So that's very important.
And one other tip that I just want to call out that I think is helpful is if you're looking to build that trust with somebody and you don't have a relationship with them, a really good in is to ask for a favor or ask for help on something. It's very disarming. People inherently like to help. They want to, be able to share their knowledge and their information with others. So if you are looking to go that route and to build relationships with somebody, a really good way to start is by asking them a question or asking for a favor, and that can then continue to build from there.
Yeah, I've done that recently, actually.
Nice.
I do have coworkers on here. I'm not trying to leave my company, but I do think it's important to keep your resume up to speed, right? I've definitely had lots of different career positions, changes in the market, right? Like you want your resume to stay agile, basically, with things that you've shifted as well as the market. And one of my colleagues is within marketing and is an amazing writer. I'm much more of a talker. So writing, I can do it, but it's just not my strong suit. So that's one of the skill sets I've identified that I'm lacking. So we're using, resume working sessions to, of course, hopefully produce a great resume that would reflect that, but also using it as a tool to help me think through ways to be really concise and hit on key highlights that normally I would want to put, 4 sentences with. And when you're doing a resume or, being able to do highlights to key executives, it's really important to have that conciseness and hitting on the key points. So it's been really helpful to, again, as Ashley was saying, ask them for something, because he's actually feeling very honored that I'm asking for help and using his expertise to help me.
Well, we're going to jump into another topic now that we're talking about, asking for help and being transparent in what we're doing. But I know that Melissa has something to add on collaboration. So Melissa.
Well, your example, actually, Case, that you brought up about, if you have a position and somebody who's going to be, the position reports to get to know that person or try to get on their radar, meet them and whatnot. But it reminded me of a question of, how do you find a mentor? If you have, if you know the type of work that you would like to do, or you're new in a field, but you know of somebody or know about somebody, introduce yourself if you don't know them, or if you already know them, ask them to be your mentor. I think it's a great way to flatter somebody. And if the person honestly feels like they don't have the time to help you, I'm sure you can ask them for recommendation for somebody else. Because if you're trying to emulate or you want to learn from somebody, the best way to do that is just to ask.
Be transparent, right? I think you just jumped into our next topic perfectly. So, Melissa, have you had a situation where you've collaborated with somebody or tapped on somebody's shoulder to be your mentor? And if not, do you have an example that you can provide us on how you've worked with a collaborator or somebody that you really look up to, you appreciate what they do in maybe the same line of work, that played a pivotal role in your own career?
So I thought it was funny that somebody had asked, well, how do you get a mentor? And I posed that question to my friend, and she was like, well, that's easy. And I said, why? She's like, just ask. So no, I've actually never done
Not
that.
that easy. Yeah.
My mentors are actually informal. So I have learned that mentorship is a more formal process. If you ask or are asked, the intent should be there. What is your, what are you learning? What do you want to get out of this? And then a commitment to either have formal meetings where you meet so often, or it could be more informal, but yet, like any opportunities just to make sure that the person has you on their radar to help provide you with things to learn or things that would help with you. So I've been assigned throughout different organizations, but those are more like preceptors to learn your job, whereas mentorship is beyond just that current role. And for those that I admire what they do or how they do it, I will ask them about how they do it, or other opportunities they have, or when I am looking to let them know, because people don't know unless you tell them. And they could be like, oh, I actually came across an old, not old, previous director And I had moved on, but I knew of somebody who might be really good in a role. And I reached out to her to say, hey, if you're looking for anybody, I have a great candidate that might be interested. And her response was, oh my God, I've been meaning to get a hold of you. I have one for you. So you never know when those opportunities are going to come.
Yeah.
And to be, I don't know if your question was around transparency or for collaboration, but it's a combination of
It can be
both,
yeah.
right? Isn't that the whole concept of Scrum, that they
Agility.
all happen all at the same time?
Well, it's the concept of agility.
But they're so interrelated, which,
Yeah.
to be transparent and open and, not just open to communication, but open about what your intentions are, can open up a lot of doors that you didn't even expect.
I actually
timing.
I actually have a mentor that is more of a formal type of relationship, and we used to have biweekly meetings. Now we've jumped to monthly, and sometimes I'll even like pick her brain and be like, hey, what do you think about, this topic? Or I was preparing for this talk. I said, hey, what are some good questions that I can ask for a panel? And if I have a project that I'm leading, if I have some challenges or obstacles during the way, I'll give her a call and be like, what do you think? I want to pick your brain on this. So always reach out to those people that you think can help you. But let's turn the tables a little bit, right? How do you, to achieve the positions that you are in? We have a director here, we have, Melissa, you're in the joint commissions, and Amy and Ashley, you're both in strata, and working your way up to a position, whether it is a manager position, director, or above, you want to make sure that people in your organization or outside can see your work, are aware of your work and your contributions. So Ashley, how do you ensure that you or a team member or colleague are aware of those contributions in a transparent manner?
Oh, that's a good question. It's hard too, because you don't want to come across as braggy. And
Yeah.
to be honest, sometimes for women as well, it's a little bit harder to brag on ourselves and kind of puff ourselves up a little bit and talk about all of the great accomplishments we've had. I have a lot of good coworkers and also friends who are really big advocates for me. And I think that they help to, one, pump me up, but I think they also help celebrate the accomplishments and talk to important people within my organization to make them aware of a lot of the things that I'm doing. For myself personally, I try and let my work speak for itself, and I do a lot of agile project management, and that's a really great way to go about working on something that is a little bit more fluid and a little bit more gray, because it's not really about the path that you took to get there. It's about the end result. And it's very easy in an agile environment to just consistently iterate until you get where you want to go. So I think that I have really been results-based. I utilize my coaching reviews to call things out, etc. The other thing too that I try and do is I try and give that back to my other coworkers. If I'm seeing that they're doing something really well, I'm calling that out to their manager and saying, hey, I was just in this meeting with Joe Schmo and he crushed it. And I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. If I'm seeing somebody who's struggling with something and I think I have a different way of approaching it that could potentially be beneficial for them, I'm calling that out as well. I think it's really important as you continue to move up within an organization that you are giving back and raising others as well and helping them achieve their goals too.
Yeah, that's very important, right? Be a sponsor for somebody as well, and have somebody be a sponsor for you. I'm going to jump into continuous improvement, because Amy, you mentioned you've done a lot of process improvement in your career and also in your own life. So as part of continuous improvement, are there any type of a process that you do, an introspection to assess your own career or your own direction and identify any opportunities for improvement or growth?
Absolutely. Yes. Do it. I try to do it as often as possible, formally, informally, but I'll highlight some of the more formal areas. to me, I have it highlighted on there that continuous improvement is really all about self-reflection and self-evaluation. We all have blind spots. They are blind. For anybody who's not familiar with a blind spot, it is a skill set or characteristic that you may not be aware that needs some improvement or difference in delivery to certain people. So there are ways you can self-identify blind spots by really looking introspectively, but the easiest way, honestly, is by asking others. So I try to every few years seek out formal surveys to colleagues. Honestly, I've even done it some with friends in discussions of what areas I want to work on. It's a great way to gather your information and, of course, put a plan in place of whether it's little projects or initiatives you want to do with yourself to be able to grow in those areas and close the gap so you reduce those blind spots. It's also a great way to measure yourself, right? So Ashley called out the performance reviews. That's really important to be able to highlight where you've moved the needle on some of those improvements. And some people might find it a little cheesy, but coming from my project management background, I'm obsessed with roadmaps. So anything with a timeline, you've got my interest. So I actually always do every year an Amy roadmap. So ultimately, I highlight initiatives or projects that I'm working on, of course, from a day-to-day role perspective, but a big chunk is focused on professional development. So I identify from the feedback skill sets that I want to work on. What am I going to do to get there? So I'm able to map that out effectively over, a 6-12 month period. This is also lending into what Ashley was highlighting. You don't want to brag and just, again, let the work speak for yourself. If you are having a meeting with your manager, a roadmap is a great tool to highlight, update them with what you're working on, where you're progressing, areas where you might need help from them or support from others, where you might need a mentor, right? So it helps to create that dialogue as well and put it together in a pretty little package and use it to, again, continue to grow for those future years.
That's a great tip. I'll start doing that. I've always said that to myself, I have to do it. And then the fiscal year starts. So the year starts and then I don't. So I will start doing it today. I will sit down and create my own roadmap. I think
Awesome.
You're right that really works well when you have those one-on-ones with your manager to lay out what has been your continuous improvement throughout this fiscal year, maybe in a performance review or those check-ins.
Yeah.
So,
and one more tip too.
Yeah.
You might brain dump, you might get a lot of feedback. You might be very self-reflective yourself. You could have a long list. You're not going to be able to accomplish that in, 6-12 month period. Create a little idea zone or a backlog so that you have that to reference and you don't lose that information. It's also great because next year you might reflect on it and decide, I still don't need to work on that, or I've already accomplished that somehow. So it's a great way to move things in and out and more of that Kanban mindset, but not to lose the ultimate goal.
Prioritizing. And that brings me, we talked about creating a roadmap. So I'm learning all these new skills here that I didn't know before. So Melissa, how have you used how do you stay up to date? There's so many things going on in healthcare. There's so many things going on in technology. How do you stay up to date to these new technologies or trends or tips on what to do to continuously improve in your career?
I never sit still. And
attend webinars like this one.
And run webinars and always asking, what else would you be interested in? In addition to my extracurricular activities, such as serving on a board of the Greater Illinois Chapter for HIMSS, as well as serving with the Nursing Knowledge Big Data Science on the different work groups there. constantly talking to other people smarter than me that give me insight into their priorities and what's new with them, and that in addition to your typical reading articles and so forth, to get that information. But as far as to improve upon oneself, that's a constant thing. I am one of those people who constantly always think, although I never did the exercise of tell me what you're going to do in about 5 years or 3 years, because if I don't do it, I have the twisted mind where I feel like, I don't want to disappoint myself, but I also know you have to be open to how you're feeling. And I've been in roles in which I'm like, this is not fun anymore. And you realize, and you have to think about where are my strengths. Before going into nursing, I actually went to college for chemical engineering, so I have a very analytical mindset. I do gravitate towards numbers, which it's nursing's more of the caring, touchy-feely side. I don't possess that, but I do care for people and help them. My goal is to improve care and patient safety and the quality so that we can take care of ourselves and be our own advocates, right? But in that process, I also know that I was going to say have been told, but I'm going to own it. I am a perfectionist. And what all that means is that I know that perfection does not exist and there's always room for improvement. And so every, I think about and go after opportunities to expand and learn and try something new, to always, not always, but I do seem to almost always say yes to new experiences, because you never know what might actually turn out to be your strength and what your love. So continuously improvement does not necessarily mean it's on one trajectory, and it could also be quite wide in breadth.
So you were very flexible in your career. You used your different tools and knowledge that was around you to make decisions. And you said, I've always said yes, to new opportunities. So Ashley, what about you? How do you determine when to say yes to a new career opportunity? How did you determine to say yes to new opportunities, like even volunteering or, learning something new? And when do you decline it? Because whatever you have right now, it's good.
Yeah. It's so funny because for me, a lot of this was trial and error, especially early on in my career. I thought that I had it all figured out. I thought I knew exactly what I wanted to do. One of my favorite stories to tell people is when I had first started at Strata, that project coordinator role that I was in actually was changed into being a Scrum Master. And so my boss at the time, I'd only been there for a couple of months. I personally really wanted to be a project manager. I felt like I should be doing that role. I felt like I should have been doing it for 2 years. And I had been very clear with everyone that that was what I wanted to do. So I remember in a one-on-one that I had with my boss, he said, okay, Ashley, so some things are going to change for you. We're actually going to move you into the Scrum Master role, and we're going to have you oversee 4 teams. And I looked at him and I said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to be a project manager. And he was pretty taken aback. And he's like, well, I'm really sorry, but you have to. And so I did it begrudgingly. I was not happy. And I ended up going and getting Scrum Master certified. I'm a CSM as well. And going through that process actually ended up being one of the best things that could possibly happen to me. I love the concept of Scrum. I love the concept of Agile. Again, it's changed how I view my career, how I look at projects, how my work world operates. And that never would have happened if I hadn't been pushed into doing this. And so I think going back to your initial question about when to say yes, when to say no, there are times in my life when I've been presented with opportunities and I had said no. The biggest reasons why I say no to something is there somebody within the organization that I feel like is better to do this job than I am today? And will they be more successful doing it? If that's the answer and it's not something I'm incredibly passionate about, then I say no and recommend the other person who I think is better. If it's something that goes completely against my values or my natural interests, I'll also say no. But if it doesn't hit one of those two things, I say yes, because I've learned that taking on new challenges, all it does is bring positive perspective, because it teaches you something new. It gives you exposure to an area that you may not have been familiar with. And to be honest, for myself personally, I feel like, especially growing in Strata, I've become so well-rounded by all of the things that I've said yes to, that it makes me a force within this company, because I know so much about so many different areas, and I'm not a SME in any one particular thing, but I have enough knowledge to be dangerous, and it makes me a value add on any project that I'm on.
And I've heard a lot of people sometimes say like, oh, you need to find that area that you're a SME on, right? That you're very particular. I disagree with that. I think that we all have our unique perspective. I think that it's good to be a jack of all trades, but also at the same time, you know, what is your niche? What is that one thing that you can contribute to? And Ashley, it seems like, you know, you have a lot of project management experience. Like, you can contribute on process improvement. You can contribute on how to take on a project and take it all the way through completion and get those outcomes. So a lot of flexibility, a lot of continuous improvement there. Amy, you talked about, you know, you talk a lot about recruitment and how you collaborate with HR and groups like that to bring in new talent to the organization that you currently are working. How do you recognize when is that time to take that next step in your career? Maybe you've been in a position for a couple of years and now you're trying to learn something new. So how do you recognize when it's time to just move on to the next step? What is your signal?
So I'm not someone, I feel like I'm similar to Melissa here. I'm not really all up in my feels. I'm very, very tactical, very focused on driving whatever we need to get home. However, from onboarding lots and lots of team members and people managing a lot of different team members, I tapped into more of a coaching mindset versus people management. And that really allowed me to take a step back to, again, reflect a little bit more on those soft skill sets versus more of the tactical hard skill sets. So through that, and using my trusty roadmap, I really have thought through, how am I feeling in that moment? What brings me joy, right? So I'm never going to be 100% because ideally I would never have to work and I'd be very wealthy. But
isn't that our ultimate goal?
Yeah, right. But at the end of the day, I want to be, 90% of the time really enjoying what I'm working on, who I'm working with. And most importantly for me, what am I learning? Right. So I think my biggest gut check is, have I stopped learning? And if that is the answer, I've stopped learning, that's when I start looking for a new opportunity. I've had a lot of transparent conversations at Strata and have done multiple roles within this organization, which is awesome that we have that environment to have those discussions. First of all, you do have to be transparent. You do have to be willing to be uncomfortable. I think a lot of people get nervous talking to their boss about exploring new opportunities. Does that mean they're gonna, let you go? Does that mean they're not going to promote you or support you moving on? So I think that's a fear that it's important for people to try to get over that and trust that through the relationships you've built, you're going to be able to move forward. But if I, feel like I'm not learning, I'm transparent with my boss about that. And then we start dissecting, what do I enjoy? And then what experiences are there out there, whether it's at my organization or somewhere else, where I feel like there would be a good fit. So to Ashley and Melissa's point, right? I mean, we have to be agile in our skill sets and not necessarily be a subject matter expert all the time. And so if you're able to pull off those experiences and show your transferable skills, that's usually what opens up those new opportunities.
You talked about, right, just when you think that you've got everything you can from your role, how do you that is your signal to say,
That's my
okay,
signal
now I
to-
need to, now I
Mhm.
need to move forward. Melissa, you've done a lot, from what you said, from bed care to now informatics, and you also worked in post-acute patient care. I know that you've mentioned that. So what did you learn from that experience in post-acute patient care, especially during the pandemic? Because 2020 feels like, to me, like it was a month ago. Actually, we're in 2023. And how did that influence your career?
I think as an informaticist, the typical pathway could be very linear, in which you start at the bedside and you go through and gain and increase your skills, and then maybe volunteer for we're doing a conversion, or we're going to be changing over from one product or implementing a new application. And then from that curiosity, then you get into the informaticist role and progress from there. And I definitely did not quite do that, in which my path goes back and forth. And what I've always heard, as starting out from the side of nursing, that once a nurse, always a nurse, and that what I learned from that experience during the pandemic, when consulting was not, during the lockdown, there were no consulting contracts, so there were, sunset or postponed, that if I needed to, I could still, care for patients and do that. And then for the next role in supporting Magnet, which is kind of a status for nursing, for to achieve and then to hold and maintain, for providing good quality nursing care. Having that recent experience providing care for patients, even if it was in the post-acute, kind of enlivened that those concepts, so that they're not, oh, well, it's been 20 years since the last time I touched a patient. Then I could actually say, oh, it's only been a few months. And to have those ideas, at hand. But in order to be flexible, you do need to be open to other opportunities, like Amy had said. And actually, I found myself at one time moved to an area, didn't finish the interview process, but I made it through 3 rounds. So I could have sworn I was going to be the next IT analyst for the local hospital system. This was in Nevada. And I did not get that job. So I was looking for, nursing, going back to patient care. And in my interviews, I was told, wow, I get the sense, you have your master's, you've done other things, you've worked in informatics, that you're only going to be here for 6 months. And instead of offering the position that I was interviewing for, they offered me the management role. I had not, nor did I really want to do the manager role, but I realistically, with the experience that I've had, and I do have education, I do know how to manage teams, I could do this. Okay, fine, I will try this. And it turned out to be exactly what I thought I do not want to do in particular. I was the manager of a 24/7 urgent care infusion center, as well as a 23-hour observation unit. But I learned so much in such a short time, and it prepared me for then my next role, which was management, and quickly became director. And I developed an informatics across 19, across different states, across the nation. And had I not been open to that role and taking that on, even if I thought, that's not what I was looking for, it would not, those other doors would not have opened up, and nor would I would prove and confirm the fact that yes, I can do this, and yes, I can, and take those skills along with me moving forward.
Thank you. So that transparency landed you into a position that you ultimately enjoyed, and you could take those skills moving forward. So I know we're wrapping up here. So while we wrap up, I will go through all of you guys for one advice on what advice would you give somebody who's just starting their career or might be looking to shift to a new position. But before we do that, if there are any questions, please feel free to put them on the Q&A box. We will be taking them after this. And if we don't get to your question, we will be answering them via email as well. So quickly, I'll start with Amy. Amy, what is your one advice?
I think my one piece of advice, and then I might cheat and add on about if somebody's searching for a new role. But my one piece of advice would be reflecting on who you want to be as an individual contributor or a leader, right? How do you want to be seen from others? What skill sets do you want to embody? I think that's really important to know your North Star, and then you can ultimately work towards that. If you are seeking a new opportunity, I think people get really stuck on making the jump from maybe one industry to another. And it doesn't have to always be that dramatic, where you're switching. I love weddings. I would love to be a wedding planner. I've never made the jump because it's very scary, but I'm in operations. Could I not just be doing operations for a wedding planning company or something tied to hospitality, right? So it's more about knowing the ecosystem that you're trying to enter into, not necessarily a set job or set responsibilities. So that's another helpful tip where it could allow you to get into different industries.
Ashley, what about you? What would be your one advice?
I think sometimes people will get stuck on the job description and just stick to those things that are listed from the very beginning. The way that I've been able to move and shift is by growing my current or my roles that I've been in the past. And I start with my job description. I'm ensuring that I'm doing all the basics that I need to do. And then I start to creep outside of it and figure out, okay, what are other things that I can get involved in that are interesting to me and are helpful to the organization? So I would encourage you, if you're interested in growing or moving or experimenting, do that outside of just what your day-to-day job is and figure out ways to kind of stretch in those areas, because that's something that is going to pique interest in a lot of people within the organization, and they're going to start to view you as somebody who they can trust and go to for more unique challenges down the line.
And Melissa, we have one question in the chat, so we'll go with Melissa and then we'll answer the question. What is your one advice?
My one advice. I don't have one, of course. But really just, you know, kind of echoing the others. Well, you know, being open to any opportunity. I knew one colleague of mine had said, always open for a conversation. So even if it's someone from another area, and one opportunity, well, one of the biggest opportunities, I actually answered the phone, misreading the area code and thinking it was from somebody from a different area. And it was like, oh, hi. Oh, no, I'm not really. Wait, keep talking. What? Keep going. Yeah, I actually am interested. Where it was, you know, no, not interested. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So you never know what's going to be available, but you also have to know yourself and be honest with yourself and persevere with that knowledge, because in the end, you are the customer in this whole agile approach to your career. And you think about, okay, well, you have shorter stints in which you present and you represent and you represent again the product to your customers. That's yourself. So you're improving yourself and thinking about, honestly, what do I want to do? Where can I go? Am I happy? And that's the ultimate question that you should be asking.
Well, now that we wrap up, we have a question on the chat from Michelle. So any of you can pick this up, but the question is, when you want to share your goals, and I think Amy, you talked a little bit about that, of doing more or learning more with your management or leadership team. How do you get past not trusting when you've been burned in the past for being truthful? So Michelle has been burned in the past, you know, by expressing what she wants to do. How do you trust again in your next manager or leadership team?
I think that that's a really good question. So I had something similar happen to me at my last company. I actually had a woman who just really liked to knock me down, and she tried to very actively sabotage my career. And it made me very nervous to open up to people and talk to them and share, you know, because she took a lot of the things that I said and used them against me. At the end of the day, no one is able to do anything alone. No one is able to join a company and then ultimately become the CEO of that company by themselves. You need people to help you. You need somebody who can see you and offer you that job. You have people in HR who are going to be a part of the hiring process, and you need them to believe in you and believe in what you're doing. No matter what, as you continue to move up in your career, you need people, and you need people to advocate for you. That's just an important part of it. I think for you, it comes down to trust. So ensuring that you have trust with somebody, ensuring that you feel like you're in a safe space before you share that. Now, if you don't feel that trust with your direct manager, find somebody else in the company that you do feel like you can build that trust with. Find a mentor, find somebody who has a lot of social capital within the organization and understands how things work. And they can be open and honest with you and tell you, okay, here's the best way to approach this situation. That would be my advice to you. But at the end of the day, it's going to require you to take that step and get a little bit outside of your comfort zone and open up again. And hopefully you have chosen somebody who is going to be that advocate for you. And you don't have to do it immediately. You can go slow until you build that trust, but that would be my advice.
It is hard to identify when you have that trust or not. There's a couple of things here. One, if you were burned by your manager or someone that you report to, that's very telling. That is not is that who you really want to work with? You need to respect the person that you're going to be working for. If you don't, then how do you improve that situation? Either looking for an area within the organization that would be a better fit, because it's going to come out somewhere else, if not in that one moment in time or in another piece or your work specifically, but your mindset and how you feel going there. Is it the culture? Is it the way that not necessarily this individual that you're reporting to or that you are honest with, but is it the culture of the organization? That matters a lot. Do you want to stay in a place in which that is the culture? And I wouldn't. There's other opportunities out there, and sharing with that. I'm very honest, and people who know me well, I tend to be even blunt. And so, but that comes with experience that, yes, I'm going to stick to my guns, because so far, time and time again, my guns have been, and that I mean by my scruples, right? My values, stick to your values. And it might be just the right clue that this is the time to move on and look elsewhere within the organization or with someone else. But honesty is not something that, yes, read the room, be able to form those relationships and that trust before opening yourself up, but don't give up.
Yeah, I think if it's unknown, if there's trust or not, right, you're still getting to know the person. It's always good to assume positive intent. A way to open yourself up a tad, but not throw all your cards on the table, is posing it more in a question. Would you be open to discussing X, right? So you're getting a feeler out there for if that person would be willing to discuss that topic with you. Maybe they'll shut you down. And then to Melissa's point, that is another clue that this may not be the right fit for you. But if they are willing to talk about it, that means they're likely looking to build that trust with you. And that's where you can also then add on to that of, maybe asking for more work and saying, I hope that you trust me, that I'm able to go off and execute on these things. So sometimes it's just prepping yourself with certain verbiage points. Try it on somebody else. Say it back to yourself. If you don't like the way it sounds, tweak it. If you love it, great. Hopefully that gives you the confidence to move forward with the conversation.
Great advice. Thank you so much. I know we're at time here, so thank you for your time today. Thank you to our panel here. Laquita, I'll turn it over to you.
So we look forward to seeing you at one of our upcoming events. Just remember to complete the evaluation survey for a continuing education certificate. And please visit our website for more information about our events. Thanks, everyone, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.